So can we go ahead and start? Do we have to do anything to do that?
I think Chrissy's already done it.
Okay. So, we don't have any non-panelists. We have we don't have any attendees. So, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and call this virtual meeting of the City Council Budget and Finance Committee to order.
Recording in progress.
And now that the recording is in progress, I'll do that again. I'm going to call this meeting of the City Council Budget and Finance Committee to order. Let the record reflect that all three members, council member, we should say yes, though, council member Lamnon.
Here.
And council member Wahab.
Here.
And I, Mayor Halliday, am here. We're all three members here. So with that, we'll go to public comments. I don't see that we have any attendees to make public comments. You're not aware of anybody.
We did receive one public comment via email. Would you like me to read it?
Yes, please.
It is.
We love everything you're doing.
It is an interesting one. Mr. Cordell Hindler would like to invite the committee members to a performance of As You Like It this Friday evening at 8 p.m. at the Maskers Playhouse in Point Richmond.
Okay. All right. Duly noted. Thank you. Ordinarily, I might have been up for going to that, but I don't think so right now. Okay. Thank you. That's all right. So now we will move on to the next thing, which is approval of the minutes of our November 17th meeting.
I'll move the item.
Second.
All right, all in favor, just say, Councilmember Lamnon, are you in favor?
Absolutely.
And Councilmember Wahab?
Yes.
And I, Mayor Halliday, am also in favor. So all three, I guess I could have Regina do this roll call, but since there are three of us. Anyway, let the record reflect then that all three of the members of the committee have expressed approval of the motion by Councilmember Wahab, seconded by Councilmember Lamnon to approve the minutes of November 17th. Okay, now we come to the annual item number 2, the annual comprehensive financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2021. And we didn't receive anything, did we, on that yet in writing?
No. So, well, I take that back. The full council got an email from me towards the end of December sharing a link to the report that had been issued, but we didn't do a formal staff report for this evening. All
right, we'll go ahead and present.
I will go ahead and share my screen here. There we go. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful. Very brief presentation, just going to give some highlights of where we ended the year. Obviously, you're all aware of the audit process that took place, began work in spring of 2020. The external auditors, Mays and Associates, came and reviewed our internal controls, made sure that everything that we were doing, that there were controls in place for all of our financial processes, et cetera. And then confirmed later this fall that the balances that we were presenting were material accurate, wrapped up their field work late fall, early winter here, and then issued their financial statements finally in December of 2021. They issued the report with an unmodified opinion. It's the highest opinion that they can technically give to an organization, which is obviously good to get anytime we can. Just got a few highlights here of the general fund. We had some key revenues up over to the previous year. Property tax was up about $2.5 million. Real property transfer tax was the one that increased the most, up about $5 million over the previous year. And then, as you all are aware, we got some funds from both the state and federal government to assist us with our mostly with COVID-related efforts. Those were the big change from the previous year. Also wanted to inform council and the public we increased general fund reserves about 5.2 million. Not quite recovered the amount that we used over the previous 2 fiscal years that were more heavily impacted by COVID, both city revenues and services. But we are close back to that level. And we've got about 36 million in reserves again, which is fantastic news. Was very glad to see that, somewhat unexpected, but I'll take it anytime. That really kind of concludes the highlights for the general fund. Measure C also saw good revenues this year. Came in at a little over 18 million in sales tax, which was more than we anticipated. Fantastic news there. Will help us to eliminate what we thought was a small gap in funding timing wise for the Fire Station 6 and Training Center. And also will hopefully continue to see strong numbers there so that we can continue to fund projects throughout the city. That really is kind of what I had for you guys. Happy to discuss anything in the gigantic report. I certainly don't have the whole thing memorized, but those are the highlights.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Councilmember Lamb? Yeah, Councilmember Hawk. Oh, yeah, Aisha. Go ahead.
I don't have any questions per se. I think that, I'm glad to see that, we're kind of bouncing back a little bit. Hopefully we see a full 100% on everything that was utilized, if you will, by the end of this fiscal year. Do you think that's possible?
In what way?
Our reserves, just making sure it's like 100.
I do. Especially, given the funds that we are able to recover for lost revenues from the ARPA funding. I do think that we'll be there, and obviously working to build towards a balanced budget so that we don't have to use reserves to balance the budget. So.
Okay, and then also with now that we have almost a year worth of cannabis revenue, making sure that we're solid there as well. Is that looking good as well?
It is, yeah, certainly. We're hopeful that we can get another dispensary open in the same, operating at the same level that Cookies is. Cookies is generating good revenue, so very glad.
Okay. Other than that, I don't have anything specific to highlight, but generally do appreciate the update, and I think I'm going to look forward to our real budget discussions when we in the coming months. So thank you.
I think we're really going to have at our February meeting, the mid-year budget review and long-range financial model update, which probably would reflect the numbers from the 2021.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And thus far in 2022.
Okay. Sarah, did you have anything?
Just congratulations on another clean audit, and thank you for the work.
I wondered, you didn't highlight sales tax at all. I don't remember. I do remember looking at that, but
wasn't much of a change, which is sort of good given we had been projecting a depletion in over prior years. So very glad to see that it didn't dip like we had projected.
Yeah, I mean, that's really a whole year of COVID. And we had only started to come back by, the spring of 2021. So that is pretty good. What about the impact on our long-term long-term liabilities?
Certainly, it's not necessarily reflected here in the report, other than we provide some information as we've gone. What I'll say is that we've got I think certainly the committee is aware of the amazing returns that the Calpers, the investments in Calpers reported last year. Certainly a bit different, but not entirely different. The funds in the OPEB trust performed incredibly well. That is doing much better. Obviously, we continue to fund it. We continue to get contributions from some of our employee groups. So we are very steadily, I would say, chipping away at that in more than a sort of nominal way each year as we continue to contribute the full actuarially determined contribution amount.
Okay, and then with the amount of our general fund reserve, what percentage did that represent of
We're certainly within compliance of our policy of 20%, which is fantastic. Obviously, we'll update that as we go with looking at what the updated projection for fiscal year 2022, and then obviously as we get into the fiscal year 2023 budget process, we'll have that percentage based on what we propose and where we adopt, etc.
Okay, there's nothing else from the committee. Could you take your screen down, Dustin?
I can. I'm going to share again.
Oh, you're gonna put it up again? Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead. We'll go on. Then we will move on to the next item, which actually is the agenda planning calendar.
And so this, what we're hoping to do this evening is a little bit different than what we sort of do towards the end of each meeting. We have a little extra time this evening since that was really the only item. We were leaving time for the potential of the public banking group to come back and present us with their findings, but they weren't ready for us. So what we'd like to do is we put together a short list of potential agenda topics. As you can see from our future agenda, most of the items on there are very routine, which certainly we're not proposing that we ignore those, take them off the list, etc. But looking to sort of spice things up, if you will, and add to sort of what the things that we can bring information on. And so I'll share that list. I see Assistant City Manager Youngblood has her hand up.
Oh, yes. Okay. Welcome to our meeting. I'm sorry I was going to have you take the roll. Yes.
I can't hear you, Regina.
Sorry. And we just met last night on Zoom and I didn't remember. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Oh, no, you're muted. You're muted. We want to hear you too. We can't hear you.
Hold on. She's got to connect to audio.
Oh, there we go. It sounds like you're connecting to audio.
Oh, no.
Bummer. Oops, it's stealing my thunder here. Okay.
You have the number of the IT department? No.
All right. Well, we'll move on, Regina. Hopefully,
All right.
Hey, Regina, if you can get it to work.
All right. So like it said, we put a few items here. Certainly not the only things that we could bring up. Just wanted to sort of give some. We'll use this list as a jumping off place. So if there are other items that anyone on the committee would like to include, certainly happy to hear those and have a discussion on that. First item, Measure C projection. I know we bring you the annual report each year, but do more of a deeper dive and really have a conversation around the future facility needs, including the PD building, and really thinking that the committee can make some recommendations to council for programming of future Measure C revenues and see how we can go there. The other is looking at doing an analysis on some pension obligation bonds. I know we've talked at a very, very surface level, and you've probably heard me say things like "over my dead body" and "never, ever, ever," and all of these things. And I promise that my body is not dead, but I'm willing to have the discussion and The market conditions have changed a bit. As you're all aware, we've got record lows in interest rates for borrowing. And so the potential for the city to be able to make an incredible difference in funding future liabilities, et cetera, and doing so at a very low interest rate, it at least is worthy of having some analysis done and having the conversation to see if it's something that we'd like to explore. The third item is looking at the budget best practices put out by organizations like the GFOA and or looking at, towards League of California Cities, other organizations that put out best practices, and really holding them up next to the city's policies and looking at where and if there are anything that we should address in our own policies to make sure we're in line with best practices, that we're living by our policies and really doing the best that we can when it comes to our budgeting and the policies that we're living by. The fourth is community foundation. Obviously, we've had a sorted journey with our East Bay Community Foundation partners. Obviously want to have a further discussion to see what that looks like moving forward and how we can really work to try to help the Community Foundation improve and receive better service from its partner. The last is look at healthcare costs. I know Councilmember Landon has brought this up many times in the past. The sort of second part of this is an impacts analysis and sort of looking at what it would take to make a transition, how that would impact stakeholders both internally and externally, and sort of look at what that may actually look like, instead of simply saying, oh, it's an impossible hill to climb. We'll keep looking at whether or not we can climb it. And have some more concrete answers as to whether or not, we're gonna set off on this journey and see sort of where we end up and how things go. So those were the sort of 5 or 6 topics that we put together. Happy to hear feedback on these or any other ideas that the committee members have. But really just kind of wanted to have a longer conversation than we usually get the opportunity, since we're kind of rushing towards the end of our meeting.
And Dustin, it sounded like Regina's sound was working.
Wonderful.
Herself, so I don't know if she sorry to jump ahead of the council members. I don't know if she was trying to say something.
Go ahead, please.
No, at the time I was getting ready to just say that I didn't see what he was referring to on the screens, but he has put up those slides and now I understand what he was referring to. I do have one question about the healthcare costs and impacts analysis. When you said about what we might be rushing into, just for my edification, what are we thinking about exploring the feasibility of?
So the city has been receiving benefits from or participating in the Calpers benefit plans. Calpers makes it very difficult for agencies to leave their plans. We've sort of jokingly compared it to jumping out of an airplane with the materials to build a parachute, but not a working parachute yet. And so it is quite an undertaking. They basically, if you leave, they kick you out. You can't come back for, I believe it's a period of 5 years. And they won't share much of the information necessary to be able to make a comparison for other potential vendors until you're out, essentially. And so it's a, I don't want to say risky necessarily. It's a difficult task to undertake, and it's a journey.
Understood. Is that a journey towards potentially being self-funded?
That's certainly something that we can consider. I don't think that's something that we have in the past.
Okay.
Okay. So it goes to committee members. Sarah. Oh, both of you have yours. Sorry. So we'll start with Sarah this time then.
I think Aisha's hand was up, so that's okay.
Okay, Aisha.
Thank you. I'm just going to say what I'd prefer as, like, let's say if we were to do a timeline or priority. I think number 3 is of significant interest to me because I know I've talked a little bit about it as to, you know, having more particular policies in place compared to other, you know, cities and so forth. We don't have as many practices in place. So that's number 1, definitely. I feel like number 2 is also incredibly important to take a look at, just to understand kind of what's out there, especially you know, with the windows and of time and so forth. Number 5. So those are my top 3. And then definitely number 1 and 4 afterwards. But I think that they're, for me, a little bit more on the back burner compared to the other 3 that I'd like to see for this particular committee, at least for the time being.
Okay.
I don't know when you want to shove it in, you know, which month, that I'm completely open to, but I'm interested in these, let's say tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3.
Yeah, and I think the budget best practices and policy review is going to take some time to sort of, 1, collect some information, but 2, it's going to be multiple conversations, and obviously, you know, if we are to change our policies, it would take the full council to change the policy. You know, a vote from the full council doesn't need to be 7-0, but certainly it would have to be considered by the full council and that sort of thing.
Definitely. And thank you for just even considering some of the things that I know that, you know, for a while, all of us kind of have different ideas and concerns, and for just saying, okay, we have a little bit of space, let's tackle one more issue. So I really do appreciate the proactive response from you and your team. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sarah?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about this list. I have a couple questions before I weigh in on that. One is, do we need to talk about anything related to the people's budget work?
I mean, it's certainly something that we could bring to the committee. Otherwise, it will be included in the mid-year process that will be going in front of the full council. And then if it's a program that we continue, obviously it'll be something that is part of future budget discussions as we go.
So yeah, that may be, I mean, I'm not interested in it coming just for the sake of it coming, but if there are policy or decision points that, you know, we need to talk about, like you said, if we're going to continue it, sort of evaluate how did it go and moving forward, perhaps as part of the best practices question. Certainly open to that. And similarly, policing budget, you know, are there changes that we'll be looking at for the new year, and whether or not that needs to be sort of a separate discussion from the just general, we're talking about the budget for the upcoming year conversation. So,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need an answer about that right now, but just kind of wanted to flag it as something that we may need time for, given the topic.
Okay.
And then, of course, whenever the public banking viability study is available, and I appreciate the ongoing work with them. And then I know February has the parcel tax tentatively scheduled, and I'm thinking about, so there's the police needs budget, and then what was tagged for the parcel tax was potentially the homelessness action plan. And so just sort of thinking about, as we think about Measure C, and whether or not we go ahead with a parcel tax, and all of those conversations sort of, in my head, overlap a little bit. And so I'm appreciating that that's, you know, that's going to be fun conversations. How do we do, what do we do? How do we prioritize? Not easy, but good, juicy stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, all the things that we need to get to. You're right. So I appreciate the list. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Aisha, I just want, you had said, you had listed 3 and 5, the budget policies and healthcare. And what was the third one?
So I went with 3, 2, 5, and
3.
then number 1 and 4 being a little bit more as
Okay.
something that we can kind of fit in. But for me, the top 3 would be
3, 2, and
3.
5.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And Okay, so since it hasn't been mentioned by either of you, and since it is one that I do think it has some potential for us, is the community foundation, getting that one straightened out, because we have good, generous people in this community, and we have good programs going that could be helped by a community foundation. And I just want to, I want to get us back on track with a good plan for that. I mean, a good, an organization that can do the things we want them to do to help us raise contribution money for some of the things we have going. That's not to belittle any of these other things on the list. I mean, I think all of them are important, and I would urge that we, I clearly, I think it may be that there will be things coming out of the roadmap discussion that will guide us a little bit more in the number one, the measure C, projection, programming, and planning. So we can look at that. We are going to need to look at that, because it looks like we're going to, as we get to paying off the things we've done, we'll have some additional money to work with on that. I mean, it's always good, and we do every year, of course, review our policies. So I suppose that will also be part of the budget discussion. Be interested in hearing anything that we could do to reduce our healthcare costs and impacts, or to at least analyze and see where we could go. I'm interested in that as well. And I'm not, certainly, should the pension obligation bond proposal or whatever, should that be something staff might be looking toward recommending now to help us? I would say let's try to work all of these in at some point, depending on what you think what you're ready to present to us, and what you think the priorities should be, or but I think we've all spoken up for a few of these, and I don't know. I mean, I think we all probably mentioned, I don't know, did we all mention any of those?
And I don't know that there's any, it's more a matter of, is there any that we don't want? And it doesn't sound like it. So.
Right. So I would,
as it makes sense to bring them forward, as you said, Mayor.
Yeah, I agree. And I also, the public banking should remain also on our list of, when they're ready to come back. And then I do think, I know we're getting through that, the voting at some point on the people's budget, and that it may be that our processes work, but I do think we should get a report on it and discuss where we go from here with this idea. So I thought that was a good idea to add in. Okay.
I just want to ask, and this is just for, Dustin, are we looking at cryptocurrency at all?
So I've had a few conversations with our investment advisors. Right now, we don't really have the option allowed by the California State Government Code to really venture into it. We can certainly look at funds that hold it, but can't necessarily invest in it directly at this point.
Okay. And why is the state forbidding us to be able to do that with our money? Are they even up to date with it?
I'm not even going to speculate on that one. I think it's quite honestly probably just the state moving slowly as the state does at times.
Okay. I'm just surprised that, they would have something that, follows relatively new.
And I would say that the government code around public investing is very conservative. So
as vanilla as it comes.
Yeah. And so, I think that's probably why, just because of concerns about the public money. It might be interesting to explore what we do with our cannabis revenue, since I think that is actually less regulated. So that might, I don't know, we'd have to talk with our investment advisors and legal counsel about whether, because that cannabis revenue is not quite as regulated as some of the others, does that present an opportunity? But we may not even have that option, just given the
Okay,
rule.
and then for me, I am, since you brought it up, you know, with cannabis also being kind of restricted as to where we can put it, if you will. Do we have significant restrictions on our cannabis funds, or that's a little bit more lax?
Certainly, any funds the city is includes in its investment portfolio, regardless of the source of it, it's going to be regulated by the California Government Code. But there are certainly ways, you know, if we are taking funds from cannabis and contributing to a community foundation, some, you know, other places that may not be subject to the same California Government Code, you know, there's possibilities there.
Okay, and the only reason why I bring it is because obviously you guys know that, you know, you can't technically put it in a bank it's so easily, right? There's so many different stipulations around that. So just curious as to how that all works out, especially with cannabis. And then
we can put it in a bank, can't we? We put it in our bank, right?
We can. I think, you know, I think what you may be referring to, Councilmember Wahab, we can accept payments in cryptocurrency. We can't hold cryptocurrency in our investment portfolio.
Yes.
So, and a lot of, you know, I shouldn't say a lot. I am aware of some cannabis revenue, you know, tax producers paying in cryptocurrency. We haven't experienced that yet. Certainly not closed off to it, and you know, the potential, but wouldn't be able to necessarily consider that a quote unquote investment, nor can we purchase cryptocurrency as an investment at this point.
Okay, and the thing about the cannabis funds is because of the fact that it's still not accepted by the federal government, and they regulate obviously a good chunk of, you know, the banking industry, if you will. So that was the reference there, but you know, I would rely on your expertise as to what we're doing with that. Other than that, I think those are two avenues of significant interest and significant potential.
Okay.
How are we receiving? You want to say that at a public meeting here? The
A whole new can of worms, right?
I know.
All right, we'll talk about that offline. I wanted to say I was going to borrow Dustin's "over my dead body" phrase about us investing in putting our money into cryptocurrency. I hope that won't happen, at least not within the next calendar year. Because I don't think it's real, but you know, it doesn't seem real, and it doesn't seem prudent. But okay, any other comments on this before we? I was going to add one more thing, and that is, can we have at least a report on where we might be in terms of? I know before COVID came along, we were talking about initiating a home buyer program for our staff. Could we put that back on as, is it still on the table? And where are we on it?
Yeah, certainly.
It's definitely a priority still for me. And I know we were pretty close to launch. I think the first group of employees had gone through all the required training, and, you know, we're about ready to do the lottery, and COVID hit. So, which is unfortunate since home prices have skyrocketed in the last 2 years, it feels like. So, but I definitely think we should revisit that, especially given we paused it because of the budget situation, but I think definitely trying to revisit it would be good.
Yeah, because our revenues haven't come in that badly, and there's ARPA money, and, you know, we'll see where we go. Okay. So with that, I think we are, so does that give you what you need on the agenda planning calendar item?
Definitely so.
All right. Do either of my fellow committee members have any announcements to make? Staff? Welcome, Regina. We are happy to have you on board and look forward to working with you. And with that, I think until our next meeting on February 16th, I think we can be adjourned.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
Two.
Recording stopped.